My name is Jonas. I'm 29, and until recently, I thought I'd finally found peace with my family. Not love, not warmth, just peace. A cold, silent ceasefire where I kept my distance, and they stopped pretending they cared. But that illusion shattered the day of my brother's wedding, a day that was supposed to be about unity, love, and celebration. Unless, of course, you're the family's designated afterthought. I hadn't even planned on going. I'd spent years away, ever since I moved across the country for grad school and decided not to come home every holiday just to be treated like a burden. But when Liam, my younger brother, sent the invitation, I was surprised. It was formal, stiff, but it had my name on it. No +1. No little note inside. Just my name, the venue, and the time. I wasn't expecting much. Still, something in me wanted to show up. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe, deep down, some foolish part of me thought they'd grown up. That they'd finally stopped punishing me for not being the golden child. Growing up, Liam could do no wrong. Straight A's, captain of the soccer team, the charming kid who could break a window and somehow still get praised for his spirit. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one. The one who liked books more than games, who asked questions they didn't want to answer, who once told our mom I didn't want to go to church anymore and got grounded for 3 weeks. I was too sensitive, too serious, too distant. And when I left home for college and didn't look back, that label turned into ungrateful. Still, I bought them a gift. Not just any gift, something meaningful. A custom hand-carved dining set I'd commissioned from a local artisan near where I live now. 6 chairs, a heavy oak table, and their initials engraved in the center. I spent weeks on it. Not to win them over, not even to be thanked. Just because I still wanted to do the right thing. To show I cared in my own way. The ceremony itself was fine. Boring, if I'm being honest. The kind of stiff, overproduced wedding you'd expect from a couple more in love with Instagram than each other. I sat quietly in the back row of the chapel, tucked between 2 cousins I hadn't seen in years. No one said hello. My mom looked through me when she passed down the aisle. My dad gave me a nod that felt more like obligation than greeting. Liam? He didn't even glance my way. Not until the reception. The venue was a sprawling vineyard, all polished wood and string lights, with a view of the hills that probably cost more than my apartment. Guests were ushered into the main hall by name. Everyone had an assigned table with pretty calligraphy place cards. I waited in line patiently, hoping maybe someone had remembered I was here. When I gave my name, the woman at the check-in table looked confused. Jonas, she asked, flipping through her list. Oh yes, you're actually over there. She pointed vaguely past the dance floor, toward a narrow space between the DJ booth and the storage area. At first I thought she was mistaken, but then I saw it. A single metal fold-up chair. No table, no place card, no setting. Just a chair behind a stack of speakers, inches from the back wall, next to a bin of power cables. I stared at it for a second, wondering if maybe this was some sort of mistake. That's when she walked up, Ava, the bride. She looked me up and down like I was something stuck to the bottom of her designer shoe. Oh, good. You found your seat, she said sweetly. We figured it made more sense for you to be near the music, since you're not really part of the main group. I blinked. What? You know, she added, lips tightening into a faux smile. Close family only at the tables. You understand, right? I didn't answer. I was still trying to figure out if she was joking. Before I could respond, my mom appeared beside her, holding a champagne flute like she was posing for a magazine spread. She didn't even wait for an explanation. Just gave a little shrug and said, "It's not like you're important, Jonas." That one hit harder than I expected. I don't know why. It's not like I hadn't heard it before, just never that blunt. Never at a wedding, with laughter ringing around me and a $1,000 cake 3 feet away. I stood there, frozen for a moment. Then I looked at the chair again. That pathetic little chair in the corner. My name wasn't on it. No one would even notice if I sat there, or if I vanished. So I smiled. That calm, deliberate kind of smile that says more than any insult could. I turned around, walked to the front of the venue where the gifts were piled up near the entryway, and spotted mine immediately. The box was huge, wrapped in deep blue paper with a cream ribbon. I lifted it easily, muscles tightening as I hoisted it into my arms. Someone saw me. A cousin, maybe. She nudged another. Within seconds, whispers started to spread like smoke through the crowd. I didn't rush. I walked slowly, purposefully, right past the tables where everyone was seated. I passed my parents, who turned just in time to see me heading toward the door. "Jonas," my mom barked. "What are you doing?" I didn't stop. I didn't speak. That's when Liam finally noticed me. He was mid-conversation, drink in hand, grinning at one of his groomsmen. But his eyes flicked to the gift, then to me, and his brow furrowed. "Hey," he called. "What are you?" But before he could finish, I reached the threshold of the hall. The music, which had been thumping some overplayed wedding anthem, suddenly cut out. Silence poured in like cold water. I turned slightly, just enough to meet his gaze. "You're right," I said clearly. "I'm not important. So I'll take back what I brought." Gasps. A few stifled laughs. Chairs scraped the floor as people twisted to watch. I didn't wait to see their reactions. And that was the moment everything began to unravel. I stepped out into the evening air, the box in my arms heavier with every step I took, not because of the weight, but because of everything it now symbolized. My breath came slow and steady, but my mind was on fire. Not with rage, exactly. It wasn't even sadness anymore. It was a kind of emptiness. A quiet realization that I had spent years trying to earn the bare minimum of respect from people who had already decided I didn't matter. I reached my car, a modest gray sedan parked in the gravel lot down the hill. The gift barely fit in the back seat. As I closed the door, I heard footsteps crunching on the gravel behind me. "Jonas." It was Liam. I didn't turn around. I opened my driver's side door and slid in, my hand hovering over the ignition. "Are you seriously doing this right now?" he asked, breathless. "What is wrong with you?" I looked at him through the window. "You gave me a chair behind the DJ booth, Liam." He threw up his hands. "It was Ava's idea. She said you'd want space. And you went along with it." He stepped closer. "Come on, man, it's just a seat. Why are you making this into a big thing? You didn't even RSVP." "I did." I emailed back. "That doesn't count." I almost laughed. "Okay." He stared at me, jaw tight, eyes flickering like he was trying to come up with something to say that would undo the last hour. "You didn't even say congratulations. You didn't even say hello." He flinched at that, just for a second. Then he tried to recover. "You think you're above all this, don't you? That you're better than us because you left." There it was. The real reason. The root of it all. The quiet resentment that had been simmering for years, now bubbling up in the parking lot while the wedding of the year carried on behind us. "I don't think I'm better," I said, voice low. "I think I deserved a chair at a table. That's all." He stepped back like my words had slapped him. And in that moment, I saw him clearly. Not the smiling groom, not the golden boy, but the kid who had always needed me to be less so he could be more. The one who couldn't bear the thought that I might exist outside his spotlight. "I'm leaving," I said. "Don't worry. I won't ruin anything else." He didn't move to stop me. He just watched as I started the car and backed out, gravel crunching beneath my tires. As I pulled away from the vineyard, I passed a few guests who were outside taking photos. One of them, a woman I vaguely remembered as one of Ava's cousins, gave me a curious look. I nodded once, calmly, and kept driving. I didn't go home right away. I needed to think. I ended up at a quiet overlook about 20 minutes from the venue. I parked the car, got out, and sat on the hood, looking out over the hills. The sky was dark now, streaked with the last hints of dusk. The box sat behind me, untouched. My gift, my gesture, my stupid, naive hope that maybe this time I'd be welcomed. I thought about everything. About the years of passive-aggressive remarks. The holidays where I was treated like a guest in my own home. The times I called and got voicemail. The birthdays they forgot. The way my mom always introduced Liam as our pride and joy and referred to me as the other one. And still, I had shown up. Still, I had tried. I took out my phone, opened the group chat with my parents and siblings, it hadn't been used in months, and typed something simple. "I'm done." Then I turned off my phone. I didn't know what the fallout would be. I didn't know if they'd call, or rage, or pretend none of it happened. But I did know this. I wasn't going to let them break me anymore. I drove home that night with the windows down, letting the air cool my skin and my thoughts. When I got back to my apartment, I brought the box inside and left it in the living room. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Just knowing it was mine again felt like enough. For now. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that the gift's sudden disappearance had started a chain reaction I never intended. A whisper at the reception. A drunken toast that went wrong. a family argument that spilled out into the parking lot, and a secret, one I hadn't known, finally coming to light. It started with a phone call the next morning, then another, then something showed up at my door. And that's when everything truly began to unravel. The next morning, I woke up to the vibration of my phone on the hardwood floor. I'd tossed it aside last night, still turned off, not expecting or wanting any messages. But old habits die hard, and eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I reached over, powered it back on, and waited for the notifications to come flooding in. They didn't. Not right away. The silence was strange, almost unnerving. Just one missed call from a number I didn't recognize, and a single voicemail. That was it. I played the message. Jonas? Hey, it's Kim. I'm Ava's cousin. We met briefly, I think. I didn't know who else to call. Things got weird last night after you left. You should probably know what's going on. Call me when you can. Weird. That was the word she used. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just weird. I sat up in bed, my heart starting to do that slow, anticipatory thump it does before a storm rolls in. I didn't call her back right away. Instead, I got up, made coffee, showered, and tried to shake the feeling that something had slipped out of place. It wasn't until noon that my phone started buzzing again. First, it was my Aunt Miriam, one of the few relatives I actually liked, texting me a single line. Your mom is in damage control mode. You okay? Then came my cousin Steven. Yo, that thing you said last night about not being important? That hit hard, man. I think you lit a fuse. And then, finally, the one I wasn't expecting, my dad. Call me. That was it. No punctuation. No please. But something about it made my stomach twist. I didn't call any of them. I called Kim. She picked up on the first ring. Oh my God, Jonas. Thank you. I wasn't sure you would. What happened? I asked, skipping past the pleasantries. She exhaled. Well, you leaving with the gift? That didn't go unnoticed. At first, people thought it was just some kind of joke, but when the music stopped and you made that comment, honestly, half the room was stunned. Your mom looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. I figured, I said flatly. But then, she continued, her voice lowering, Ava made this weird comment about how she told you not to expect a seat, and someone, I think it was her uncle, asked what she meant. And she didn't hold back. I was quiet, letting her go on. She basically said you were just the difficult sibling, that you always make things about you, and that the wedding wasn't the place for broken family stuff. She said it like she was proud of it. I didn't respond. My jaw was tight. And Liam, she added. He tried to laugh it off, but then your cousin Ryan, the one from Seattle? He stood up, just stood up at the table and said, wow, you all really did Jonas dirty. And then, I don't know, it was like someone knocked over the first domino. I leaned against the kitchen counter, heart thudding now. People started talking. Loudly. Your Aunt Miriam got into it with your mom. Apparently your mom had been telling people you weren't sure you could attend, and that's why your name wasn't on any of the seating charts. But someone else, I think it was your old babysitter, said she saw the RSVP list and your name was checked weeks ago. I closed my eyes. Of course. It all just blew up, Kim said. People were whispering about the seating, about how weird it was that you weren't included in the photos. And then, someone mentioned the lake house. I froze. What about it? I asked, my voice low. Kim hesitated. I don't know the full story, but apparently there's been talk that it's going to Liam. Like, your parents already signed the paperwork. But someone overheard your mom saying that Jonas never really cared about the house anyway. And that's when your Uncle Ted lost it. That hit me like a punch to the chest. The lake house wasn't just a vacation property. It was where I'd spent every summer as a kid, where I taught myself to swim, where I fixed the roof with Dad one summer, sweating under the July sun. I loved that place. And when I moved out, I used part of my scholarship refund checks to help pay for renovations. It was my idea to turn the basement into a guest room. My money that paid for the new deck. And they were giving it to Liam. Behind my back. Kim must have sensed the shift in my breathing. I thought you knew, she said quietly. I didn't. She was silent for a second. I'm sorry. I shook my head. Don't be. Thank you for telling me. Look, she added. I don't know what your plans are, but you have more people in your corner than you think. A lot of us saw what they did to you. Some of us have been watching for years. I didn't know what to say to that. I just thanked her again and hung up. Then I sat down on the couch, staring at the box in front of me, the wedding gift that had started it all. I thought about the lake house. about the time, the money, the memories I had invested, about the way my family had treated me like a ghost, a liability, a mistake they had to tolerate. And suddenly, something clicked. I wasn't angry. I was done. Done playing nice. Done being silent. Done giving them the benefit of the doubt. If they wanted to erase me from the family, I'd show them what that really looked like. But not with shouting. Not with drama. No, I'd be surgical, quiet, deliberate, and I knew exactly where to begin. The next morning, I pulled the old lockbox out of my closet and dusted it off. Inside were years' worth of documents, receipts, invoices, signed agreements. I had kept everything from when I helped renovate the lake house. At the time, I did it more out of habit than foresight. I'd gotten used to keeping a paper trail when I realized early on that if something ever went wrong, no one in my family would remember or admit what I contributed. I flipped through the manila folder labeled Lake House Reno, 2017 to 2020. There were itemized receipts from the hardware store, printed emails with contractors, and even a signed letter from my dad, written on a yellow legal pad, thanking me for investing in the family legacy. I had nearly $28,000 worth of documented improvements that I'd funded on my own. I had photos of me replacing the railing, helping pour concrete for the patio extension, sanding cabinets, staining floors. This house wasn't just a memory to me, it was part of my life's work, and they were going to hand it off like it was a party favor. That afternoon, I made 2 phone calls. First, I called my lawyer, Janet. She'd helped me a couple years back when I was dealing with a tenant dispute, and I remembered how sharp she was. I laid everything out, my financial contributions, the signed note from my dad, the evidence that the house was in the process of being transferred to my brother without even a mention to me. "You have a case," she said flatly, "especially if you can show there was a verbal or informal understanding that this was a shared investment. That letter might be more valuable than you think." Then I called a locksmith in the area of the lake house. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I need the locks changed on a property I have partial investment in. Got all the paperwork, receipts, and legal docs. Can you do it by the weekend?" He could. Saturday at 9 a.m. The wheels were in motion. I didn't announce what I was doing. I didn't post on Facebook or send any dramatic family texts. I let the silence simmer. I ignored my dad's second and third texts. I skipped my mom's guilt-trippy voicemail. "You embarrassed your brother." And for what? A chair. And I didn't even listen to Liam's message, which started with, "Look, I didn't know how bad it looked, okay?" and ended with something about just wanting peace. They didn't want peace. They wanted silence. That Saturday, I drove out to the lake house, a place I hadn't seen in nearly 2 years. It looked just like I remembered. Peaceful, a little worn down from the weather, but still ours. Mine. The new deck I helped build was still solid. The stairs didn't creak. The door still had the same rusty screen hanging from one hinge. It was beautiful in its own broken way. The locksmith met me at the driveway. I handed him my ID and a stack of papers proving my involvement and contributions. He glanced through them and nodded. "Fair enough," he said. "Let's get started." An hour later, the locks were changed. The house was mine again, at least in the only way that mattered. Inside, I took photos of everything. Every fixture I'd paid for, every upgrade I'd made. I even found the framed family photo they kept on the mantle, the one from 2012 where I'd been cropped just slightly off-center, like an afterthought. I smiled at it and put it in a drawer. That afternoon, I drove straight to Janet's office and handed over the file. "I'm not looking to destroy them," I said, "but I want what's mine. I want acknowledgement, and I want it on paper." She nodded. "We'll file a motion for partial ownership and compensation for property improvement. If they try to sell or transfer the title, we'll file an injunction. They'll have no choice but to negotiate." And that's exactly what we did. Within 2 weeks, the family chat exploded. "Why is there a lawyer involved? Jonas, what are you doing? Do you really want to ruin your brother's wedding gift over a misunderstanding?" I ignored them. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. The same week the legal letter was served to my parents, I mailed back their wedding gift. I had rewrapped it, this time in plain brown paper with a typed note taped to the box. It read, "You said I wasn't important. This is me believing you." Then I blocked their numbers. The negotiations took 2 months. At first, my parents insisted I was being dramatic, that I had no right to the property, that my contributions were just help, not investment. But the documents were clear. The photos were time-stamped. The letter from my dad, his own words, in his own handwriting, became the final nail. Janet was a shark. Calm, methodical, and merciless when she needed to be. She negotiated not just a partial ownership agreement, but a buyout option that forced them to compensate me for the full amount I invested, plus interest, or face a court battle. They caved. They wired me $36,500 to avoid a public dispute. That money paid off the remainder of my student loans. The irony wasn't lost on me. After the settlement, I got a letter from Liam. Handwritten. Long. He tried to apologize. Tried to say he hadn't meant for any of it to happen the way it did. That he loved me. That he hoped I'd be part of his life again. But there was a line that sealed it for me. He wrote, "You didn't have to go this far." As if I had crossed a line. As if fighting for respect was somehow a betrayal. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. 6 months later, I found out through a mutual friend that Ava and Liam had postponed their honeymoon. Something about financial setbacks. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But I finally felt something I hadn't in years when it came to my family. Peace. Not the cold silence I'd accepted before. Real peace. Because I had stood up. I had drawn a line. And I had shown them that I would not let myself be erased. They used to say I was too sensitive. Now they knew that I was simply done being silent. Forever.